What if your silence could haunt someone more than your words ever could? What if disappearing without a word was the loudest statement you ever made? And what if the only thing they remember about you is that they never got to explain why they lost you? The most powerful move you'll ever make is no move at all. Let that truth sink in for a moment, because right now, your instinct might be screaming for action. You think blocking them will send the message they need, that cutting them off will make them realize what they had, that pouring your heart out one final time will open their eyes. But real power doesn't live in noise, it lives in silence. You don't win by shouting, you don't win by reacting. You win by doing the one thing they never predicted, absolutely nothing. So before we dive into what that silence really means, like this video, subscribe, and stay with me, because what I'm about to share will flip the emotional script in ways they won't recover from. Picture this. You walk into a magic show. The magician is in his flower rabbits from hats, cards in the air, mind-reading tricks. The crowd is hypnotized. Then suddenly, mid-performance, he stops. No explanation, no final bow, no farewell trick. He just walks off the stage. The show doesn't end, it vanishes. And now the crowd can't stop thinking, what was supposed to happen? Was it part of the act? What does it mean? That's the kind of disruption silence creates. It hijacks certainty. And when there's no closure, the mind loops endlessly. That's how you break someone without a single word. People expect reactions, anger, pleading, explanations. They expect a predictable emotional pattern. They want the drama they're familiar with. But when you go silent, when you disappear completely, no text, no call, no angry goodbye, suddenly you've rewritten the narrative. You're no longer a character they control. You've exited their stage without warning. And that lack of closure, that unanswered question, that's what keeps them up at night. Because blocking someone, that's expected. It screams, I'm mad. Begging, that says, you still matter to me. But silence creates mystery. Silence says, you don't get access to me anymore. Imagine this. A store you love walking into suddenly closes. No signs, no goodbye, just shuttered. You walk past again and again, wondering what happened, looking for answers that never come. But a store with a bright closing in 7 days sign, that gives you closure. You process it. You move on. That's human psychology. People don't chase what blocks them. They chase what they don't understand. They aren't haunted by what begs for their attention. They're haunted by what slipped away too soon. The truth is, most people don't care when they hurt you. Not at first. They care when your absence starts to hurt them. They care when the phone goes quiet, when the messages stop, when the energy shifts, and they can't explain why it feels so empty. That's why you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't prove. They had their chance to value you, and they wasted it. Now, your silence becomes the teacher. Your distance becomes the consequence. And when they finally realize what they lost, you'll be too far ahead to hear their apologies. Say it with me. I owe no one my energy. Write it in the comments if that hits something inside you. Own it. Live it. And if you're ready to take your power back, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay close. Because what's coming next will make sure they never look at you the same again. The silent shift that breaks them. You don't break them by trying to get their attention. You break them by making them wonder if they ever truly had yours. Blocking them doesn't shake them, confusing them does. They don't spiral because you yelled. They spiral because you left them with a question they'll never be able to answer. Imagine someone pulling all the strings, feeling in control, and then nothing. The puppet drops. The string is cut. They tug, they pull, but nothing happens. That's when the panic sets in. That's when they realize they were never in control, only in the illusion of it. That's what silence does. It exposes the illusion. And when the phone stays dark, when the inbox stays empty, when the notification never comes, that's when they finally begin to break. They won't admit it, but here's the part they'll never escape at first. They don't miss you. They feel free. They feel justified. They convince themselves they made the right choice. They laugh. They distract. They move as if nothing happened. But silence? Silence is not a scream, it's a slow creeping shadow. It doesn't explode. It seeps in. It haunts. Because while they were bracing for fireworks, what they got was a quiet so deep it made them question everything. And that's when it starts to twist. That's when the silence grows teeth. This is the point where fear whispers into your mind. You're asking yourself, but if I don't block them, won't they think I still care? Won't they assume I'm waiting? Won't they win? That's the trap. That's the lie your fear sells to keep you tethered. You've been taught that closure is something you must give, that being understood is what frees you. But think, did they give you closure? Did they pause long enough to consider your pain? Did they look you in the eye and explain themselves with empathy? Or did they vanish, believing they'd always have access to you? They didn't ask if you were okay. They assumed you'd still be there. That's the difference. And now you're flipping the script. Imagine a store where everything is free. No price tags. No effort. Come in, take what you like, leave when you please. For a while it feels fun, almost like a game. But one day, that store is gone. Doors locked. No goodbye. No explanation. And suddenly, it's no longer about what was free, it's about what was lost. That's what your silence becomes. When you stop making yourself available, when you remove your energy from the shelf, people realize they never understood its value. And here's the truth no one tells. You silence is hard. It doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels like loss. It feels like punishment. You'll itch to reach out, to send a message, to check their page, to see if they noticed. But every time you do, you hand them the power you just reclaimed. Every word, every view, every emoji is you saying, "You still matter more than my peace." But today, that ends. Because when your silence becomes the only answer they get, that's when regret is born. Not when you cry, not when you post heartbreak anthems. But when they realize they've been locked out of your world without warning, that's when they sit in the quiet, wondering what's going on in your mind, realizing they have no idea who you've become. They thought they had you figured out. They thought they could predict your every move. But now, you've become unreadable, unreachable, and that terrifies them. Because people don't fear losing you, they fear losing their hold on you. They fear losing the narrative, the control, the comfort of knowing they can twist your emotions at will. When you stop giving them that script, when you stop letting them know exactly where you stand, that's when their own mind becomes the punishment. And here's what you need to understand most. The longer you stay silent, the stronger your position becomes. The more you refuse to engage, the more powerful your presence becomes in their absence. You let them sit with their choices. You let them taste the consequences they never imagined would come. Because in the beginning, they'll play it cool. They'll post like they're thriving, laugh loud, dance harder. But time always reveals the truth. The longer the silence stretches, the louder their doubts get. Why hasn't she called? Did he move on? Did they replace me? They'll scroll for proof. They'll search for signals. But your absence is the only message, and it speaks volumes. By the time they finally realize what they lost, by the time their heart aches with the truth, they'll look up, and you'll be gone. Not angry, not broken, just evolved. So now the choice is yours. You can keep pouring your energy into explanations, hoping they'll suddenly understand. You can keep handing them the comfort of knowing you're still emotionally tethered to their presence. You can keep answering those midnight texts, feeding the illusion that they still have access to you. Or you can let your absence speak with the volume your words never could. Say it out loud. My silence is my power. Write it in the comments. Own it like armor. Show the world, and more importantly, show yourself that you're no longer here to beg for understanding or approval. You're done playing small to stay in someone else's world. And believe me, what's coming next will make them question everything they thought they knew about you. Stop begging. Make them feel your absence instead. Because if words were going to change them, they already would have. Let that truth settle deep. Because right now, you think that words are your last chance. You believe that if you just craft the right message, pour your heart out in the perfect way, then maybe, just maybe, they'll get it this time. But think back, did they listen before? Did they change when you bled truth for them? Did they even pause to consider the pain you expressed? Number. People don't regret when you cry. They regret when they can no longer reach you. When your presence, once taken for granted, turns to silence, that's when reality punches through their delusion. It's like a radio station that's always been on in the background, so constant they don't even hear it anymore. Then one day, they tune in and it's gone. Just static. Just silence. That absence, that void, that's when it hits. That's what happens when you leave someone's life without explanation, without noise. Your silence becomes louder than any scream. But you keep making it easy. You're still leaving the door open. You're still replying to their lazy, hey texts. You're still watching their stories, dropping likes, maintaining invisible threads of connection. And then you wonder why they never take you seriously. Let me tell you why, because people don't value what they think they'll never lose. They don't chase what they believe is standing still. As long as you keep making yourself available, they'll never feel your absence. And here's where fear tries to seduce you. It tells you that if you disappear, they'll forget you. If you stop reaching out, they'll move on. If you go quiet, they'll assume you didn't care. But let's be honest, if someone can forget you just because you stopped chasing them, they were never yours to begin with. And that's the truth that sets you free. The people who truly value you won't need reminders. They won't require proof that you still care. They won't need digital breadcrumbs to remember your worth. The ones who only show up when they feel you slipping away, they're not mourning you, they're mourning the validation you used to provide. They miss being comforted by your loyalty, not your presence. And that's why it's time to shift everything. Because nothing hits harder than realizing they no longer have access to you, that their casual messages don't land anymore, that their backup plan just vanished, that their crumbs are no longer enough to keep you on standby. So today you stop. No more checking their profile, no more overthinking their silence. No more wondering if that like meant anything. Because every time you engage, every time you give them a signal that you're still emotionally reachable, you're handing them relief. You're giving them peace of mind they don't deserve. You're allowing them to move on comfortably without ever feeling the loss they caused. And trust me, people only regret losing you when you make them feel the full weight of that loss. Think about it. Imagine walking into a store, picking up an item, carrying it around, never committing to the purchase. You assume it'll be there later, but the next time you come back, it's gone. Sold. Someone else claimed what you hesitated to value, and suddenly it's all you can think about. That's how the human mind works. We chase what escapes us. We crave what's no longer available. Let them feel that. Let them sit in the silence. Let them stare at a phone that doesn't ring. Let them scroll past your name with no updates, no signs of life, no clues. Because when someone finally realizes they lost what they assumed would always be there, that's when regret becomes real. And by the time they feel that emptiness, you'll be too far ahead to hear it. Say it again. I refuse to be an option. Write it boldly in the comments. Plant that truth into your soul. You're not here to prove anything to someone who never earned the right to hold you. You're not a second choice. You're not a safety net. And what comes next? It's going to ensure they never forget the moment you stop being available. Don't block them, make them watch. You don't need to erase their presence. You just need to become someone they can't reach anymore. Let that truth anchor you. Because right now, you might believe that blocking them will shake them, that cutting them off will teach them something. But it won't. Blocking them gives them closure. It lets them say, well, they're just mad. They'll calm down. And that's the comfort they use to move on. But when you leave the door cracked just wide enough for them to see the light, but never wide enough to re-enter, that's when the real torment begins. Imagine walking past a familiar house. It used to be yours. You knew the smells, the voices, the warmth. But now, the windows are tinted. The door is locked. You can hear laughter inside, see shadows moving, but you're not invited. That's what it feels like when someone you once knew becomes someone you can't access anymore. When you keep living, glowing, thriving, and they're stuck outside wondering who you've become. That's what happens when you stop explaining and start evolving. That's when they don't just miss you, they mourn what they never truly appreciated. They expected drama. They anticipated the explosion, the angry message, the loud goodbye. They thought you'd lash out, block them, storm out of their life with fireworks. Because that's how it usually goes, right? That's the familiar script they've seen before, the one where you play the broken one, the reactive one, the one who confirms their power by making a scene. But this time, you broke the pattern. You didn't scream, you didn't chase, you didn't even block them. You simply disappeared, not as a ghost hiding in the shadows, but as someone who decided they no longer exist in your world. That silence, it's louder than any argument you could have started. It echoes deeper than any final message you could have sent. And that's what shakes them. That's what breaks them. Because they don't know how to respond when there's nothing to respond to. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, but if I don't block them, won't they think I'm still waiting? Won't they assume I still care? That's fear talking. That's the illusion your mind feeds you when you've been conditioned to believe that closure has to be noisy. But here's the truth: blocking them is still a response. It still tells them they had an impact. It says, you got to me, so I had to erase you. But when you don't even bother, When you simply stop acknowledging their existence, that's when they start spiraling. Because now they don't know where they stand. They don't know what's going on in your heart. And that mystery, it kills their ego. You didn't leave with fireworks. You left with power. You didn't slam the door. You let it close itself while you walked away without looking back. And now they're watching quietly, obsessively. They check your page, scroll through your photos, replay old conversations. They're looking for a sign, a clue, a crack that tells them you still care. And every time they find nothing, every time they see you thriving, smiling, living a life that doesn't include them, it chips away at the confidence they once had. They thought they had forever. They thought they could come back when they were ready. But every new photo, every joyful post, every silent day that goes by without their name lighting up your phone is another reminder they're no longer welcome. And here's where most people lose the power they built. They try too hard to be seen. They post for attention. They drop hints. They want their ex to see what they're missing. But that's not real power. That's performance. Real power moves in silence. Real strength doesn't need validation. It doesn't seek applause. It just evolves. Quietly, consistently, irreversibly. You don't have to prove anything to the person who didn't value you when they had the chance. You don't have to show them what they lost. They'll feel it. They'll feel it when they go looking for you and find nothing but progress. They'll feel it when they realize they're no longer part of your story and the new chapters are better than anything they were in. Say it with me. I don't chase. I don't block. I become unreachable. Write it down. Comment it. Live it. Because today is the day you stop reacting and start ascending. You flip the dynamic. Because here's the truth. They only chase when they feel they've lost control. When they believe you're still waiting, they relax. They delay. They test boundaries. But when the texts stop being answered, when the old emotional strings don't pull you anymore, that's when panic sets in. Imagine a slot machine that pays out every single time. No risk, no suspense. Just constant reward. At first it's fun, but then it becomes routine, unremarkable, taken for granted. But what happens the moment that machine stops? What happens when they pull the lever and nothing comes out? Now it's a mystery. Now it's frustrating. Now they need it more than ever because the certainty is gone. That's exactly what happens when you stop being predictable. When you no longer respond to their breadcrumbs. When you don't react to their half-hearted check-ins. When your silence becomes consistent, now they're the ones feeling uncertain. Now they're checking their phone. Now they're wondering what happened to their power. And here's where many people fall, because the second they get a message, that weak, hey, that random, how have you been, they jump. They think, this is it. They finally realize what they lost. But they didn't. They just missed the feeling of control. They want to know if they can still access you, if they still matter. And the second you reply, you hand the power right back. But not this time. This time, you see through it. This time, you breathe instead of typing. This time, you pause instead of proving. You let their message sit unanswered, unimportant. And in that moment, you reclaim something they never thought you would yourself. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them drown in the uncertainty they once handed to you. And understand this, it won't be easy. You'll want to explain, you'll want to prove, you'll want to be seen. But true power doesn't chase recognition. It becomes undeniable. You don't have to prove that you've moved on. You just have to keep moving. And when they realize the door isn't just closed, it's gone, they'll start to feel what you felt: confusion, regret, loss. And by then, you won't care. Say it again: I am no longer in their control. Type it, declare it, because this is who you are now: unavailable, unapologetic, unshakable. And here's one final truth: make them feel replaceable. Because they truly believed they couldn't be replaced. They believed they were special. That no one else would make you laugh like they did, support you like they did, mean as much as they did. That's what they told themselves when they left. That's how they justified walking away. But then they see you smile again. They see someone else laugh beside you. They see you glowing and not just faking it, but radiating something real. Now the story changes. Now they realize they were never as special as they believed. They were just another chapter, just a lesson, just a name you outgrew. And when they come back, trying to reignite something you've long since buried, you won't need to block them. You won't need to scream. You'll smile. You'll move. And you'll let the silence speak every word they were never ready to hear. And when you stop proving your worth to someone who never earned it, you create space for peace, for clarity, for self-respect. You're no longer performing pain for someone else's satisfaction. You're no longer reacting so they can feel powerful. You're reclaiming your presence. Because the real glow-up isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the peace they can't interrupt. It's the stability they can't shake. And eventually, they'll feel it in ways they never expected. In the moments they want to reach out and realize they have no idea what to say. In the moments they see something that reminds them of you and realize they can't go back. That's when the regret cuts deep. That's when silence becomes punishment. Because while they were entertaining distractions, you were building boundaries. While they were testing your limits, you were learning your strength. And now, you don't just survive, you elevate quietly, permanently, with no need for closure, explanation, or validation. You simply rise. And by the time they recognize the rare value they once had access to, you'll be too far above for them to reach. You'll be the memory they try to rewrite but can never relive. You'll be the lesson they carry but never again experience. And that, my friend, is the kind of freedom they'll never be able to take from you again. They thought you'd stay stuck. They assumed you'd sit in the rubble, clinging to the past, checking their profile, hoping they'd return. They imagined you frozen, reliving every word, every mistake, every goodbye. But instead, you did something far more powerful. You became the one thing they never saw coming: untouchable. You didn't spiral. You didn't chase. You didn't fall apart. You evolved. Quietly. Boldly. Fully. Imagine a musician who believes only one instrument can make music. They pour their entire soul into it, convinced that without it, there's no sound, no rhythm, no expression. But then, one day, that instrument disappears. And suddenly, they discover something astonishing. There's an entire orchestra they never explored: violins, pianos, drums, choirs of sound they never considered. That's when they realize it was never about the instrument. It was always about the music within them. That's exactly what happens when someone sees you thriving without them. They thought they were your melody, your rhythm, your voice. But you were always the composer. You were never dependent on them. Their absence didn't break you, freed you. And that truth, that realization, is what haunts them. But right now, fear might still be whispering in your mind. What if I can't replace them? What if no one else ever makes me feel like they did? That voice, that doubt, is a lie. A trick your mind plays to keep you attached to an illusion. You're not afraid of losing them, you're afraid of losing the fantasy, the version of them that only existed in your mind, the version you wish was real. Because let's face it, if they had truly been who you imagined, you wouldn't be here trying to make them regret losing you. You wouldn't be looking for healing, you'd be living in love. Real love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't play games. It doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't demand you prove yourself to be chosen. And that's why now it's time to wake up. Because nothing shakes someone to their core more than seeing the person they walked away from become someone they can no longer reach. Nothing bruises the ego more than watching someone they took for granted become untouchable. And here's where most people sabotage their own power. They try to prove they've moved on. They post pictures with someone new. They drop hints. They want to make the other person jealous. But that's not real freedom. That's still performance. True transformation happens when you move forward so completely that you forget you were ever trying to prove anything at all. Because real replacement isn't about another relationship. It's about a better life, a clearer mind, a deeper peace. It's about becoming so full within yourself that you don't need to fill the void with noise. Think about this. A child throws away a toy thinking it's worthless. They don't care. They assume there's always something better waiting. But then one day, they see someone else with that toy, laughing, smiling, cherishing it, and suddenly they want it back. Suddenly they remember. Suddenly it means more than it ever did when it was in their hands. That's what regret looks like. Because at first, they don't feel the loss. They feel freedom, they feel power, they feel invincible. But time humbles everyone. Time shows them that not every connection can be duplicated. Not every heart will stay open. Not every door waits forever. And when they realize that what they had with you was rare, when they see that you've become someone they can no longer reach, that's when the truth lands heavy. That's when the regret finally hits. And by then, you won't even be watching. You'll be too far ahead. So now you choose. You can keep waiting, keep hoping they'll wake up, keep checking your phone for signs, or you can rise. You can step into the power they never believed you had. You can show them they were never your destination. They were a lesson, a detour, a necessary ending to birth a new beginning. Say it aloud, I am irreplaceable. Write it. Feel it. Live it. Because the moment you believe it, they will feel it, and they'll never see you the same again. And here's the secret weapon most people never understand. Unpredictability. When someone can't read you, they can't control you. And right now, they still believe they know you. They think they've got you figured out. They think they know exactly how you'll react. They expect the late night text, the emotional story post, the slip where you check their page. They're just waiting for confirmation that they still matter. But what happens when you don't give it to them? What happens when you rewrite the script entirely? When you don't beg, don't post, don't check, don't react? When you vanish not as a ghost, but as a mystery they can't decode? That's when the panic starts. That's when the questions flood their mind. Wait, why haven't they reached out? Did they really move on? Did I ever matter at all? That lingering doubt, that unanswered question becomes a loop they can't escape because people don't fear losing what they understand. They fear losing what they can't predict. Picture this. You're watching a movie and right before the big reveal, the screen cuts to black. No explanation, no ending, nothing. You can't stop thinking about it. You replay it, obsess, try to solve it. That's the power of the unknown. That's the power you hold when you stop being the version of yourself they expect. They thought you'd chase, that you'd explain, that you'd leave breadcrumbs for them to follow. But when you stop playing the role they assigned you, you flip the game. Suddenly, they're not sure anymore. They don't know if you still care. They don't know if you're watching. They don't even know who you are now because the old version of you doesn't exist anymore. And here's what most never admit. Control is about expectation. It's the belief that they can trigger you at any moment. But when you break that pattern, when you stop being responsive, they start spiraling. They try to bait you. Post to get a reaction. Send messages to check your pulse. But what happens when you don't bite? When you leave them on read not just in text, but in life? When you don't watch their story, don't like their post, don't chase the crumbs? Now they're the ones refreshing. They're the ones obsessing. They're the ones haunted by the silence they once thought was weakness. Because the more they realize they can't read you, the more they lose their grip. And let's be honest, certainty is comfort. When someone knows your every move, they don't worry, they assume they still have you. But when you take that away, when you become a blank page, an unanswered question, an unsolved mystery, that's when you become unforgettable. You might be thinking, but if I stop reacting, won't they move on? Won't they forget me? Because the mind doesn't forget what it can't understand. What stays with us the longest are the unfinished stories, the loose ends, the moments that left us wondering. And that's why you stay silent. You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't close the door. They just realize they were never invited back. Most people mistake unpredictability for games. They try to be mysterious by pretending, by faking happiness, by trying to trigger jealousy. But real unpredictability, real power, it's when you actually move on, when you genuinely don't care, when their presence or absence doesn't shake your center anymore. That's when they feel it. That's when they know you didn't just walk away, you ascended. They thought your silence was temporary. They thought your absence was just a phase. They assumed that any day now you'd reach out, explain yourself, maybe even apologize. But what they didn't see coming was that you were never coming back. You didn't go quiet to play a game. You didn't walk away to get attention. You disappeared because something inside you shifted forever. You stopped waiting for closure. You stopped hoping for understanding. You realized that real healing doesn't come from being hurt, it comes from being free. And freedom begins when you stop needing them to make sense of the pain they caused. Right now, they might still think they have you figured out. That if they just say the right thing, if they just show up one more time, if they just offer a weak apology, you'll come running back like you used to. But what they don't know is that version of you, the one who tolerated the bare minimum, who stayed loyal through the hurt, who kept explaining your worth is gone. That version has been buried by every ignored message, every broken promise, every sleepless night spent trying to understand what you did wrong. And in its place, a version of you that no longer seeks closure, no longer craves their validation, and no longer makes space for people who couldn't see your value when it was right in front of them. Think about how many times you typed a message you never sent, how many explanations you rehearsed in your head, hoping they'd finally understand. How many nights you laid awake wondering if they ever missed you the way you missed them. And what did you get in return? Silence, indifference, or worse, breadcrumbs. Tiny glimpses of attention, just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to make you whole. That's not love. That's manipulation. That's control. That's emotional convenience. And the most powerful thing you've ever done is walking away from it all without a single word. Because here's the truth. Closure is a gift they were never planning to give you. It's the final act in a story they already moved on from. It's the neat little ending that makes them feel better about how they hurt you. But you don't need to make them comfortable anymore. You don't owe them the privilege of explanation. You don't need to tidy up the mess they created. You get to walk away in silence and let that silence speak volumes. Let it echo in their mind. Let it haunt every quiet moment. Let it become the question they can't answer, the sentence they'll never get to finish. They'll scroll through old conversations, hoping to find a clue. They'll replay memories, wondering where it all went wrong. And every time they reach the end, they'll find nothing. No explanation, no farewell, no warning. Just a quiet absence that grows louder with time. Because silence, when delivered with intention, is not empty, it's thunderous. It's the kind of noise that shakes foundations. It's the echo of strength they never saw coming. It's the reminder that they are no longer entitled to access your heart. They expected a confrontation. They anticipated the angry message, the dramatic scene, the long-winded explanation, because that's what they're used to. That's how stories usually end. But when you gave them nothing, no reply, no closure, no reaction, it disrupted everything they thought they knew about you. It broke the narrative. It turned the predictable into a mystery. And humans, we don't forget mysteries. We obsess over them. We chase them. We replay them. And that's why you don't explain. That's why you don't answer. That's why you don't give them the relief they're looking for. Because regret is born not from clarity but from confusion. Right now you might feel a pull to go back, to send just one final message, to clear the air. But I promise you, if you do, you give away the power you've been reclaiming, because you don't need them to understand anymore. You don't need them to feel sorry. You don't even need them to miss you. You've grown beyond that. What you need, what you've always needed, is peace. And peace doesn't come from their validation. It comes from your decision to stop performing your pain for people who never cared to see it in the first place. So let them wonder. Let them live with the silence. Let time become the mirror they can't avoid. Because the longer they go without hearing from you, the more they'll feel it. At first, they'll pretend they don't notice. They'll tell themselves, "You're just playing a game." But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the illusion fades. The laughter stops feeling real. The distractions no longer numb the ache. And eventually, they'll realize they lost someone they can't replace. You become the person they tell stories about, the one who disappeared, the one who didn't beg, the one who didn't play the game. And that mystery, it becomes a weight they carry with them into every new connection, every new attempt to move on. They'll compare everyone to you. They'll search for what they lost in people who can never replicate your energy. And all the while, you'll keep rising, quietly, steadily, without them, because that's the part they never expected. They thought your absence meant weakness, but it was strength. They thought your silence meant confusion, but it was clarity. They thought no response meant you didn't know what to say. But the truth is, you had nothing left to explain. You stopped talking because you had already said everything that needed to be said. You stopped reacting because you realized their attention was not a prize, it was a trap. And once you escaped that cycle, once you finally stepped outside of the loop, you saw it for what it was, a distraction from your own greatness. Now they're the ones refreshing your page. Now they're the ones checking your status. Now they're the ones searching for closure they'll never receive. And you're living, you're healing, you're investing in yourself. You're discovering joy in places their shadow never reached. You're connecting with people who don't require pain to feel loved. You're becoming someone who no longer needs to be seen in their story because you're too busy writing your own. So if you ever feel tempted to explain, to justify, to reach out, remember this. People don't regret what they understand. They regret what they can't figure out. They regret what they can't replace. And they regret what they can't reach. So remain unreachable. Remain a mystery. Let your peace become the punishment. Let your silence become the soundtrack of their realization. Say it with me. I owe no one my story. I owe no one my voice. I owe no one the comfort of understanding my departure. Write it in the comments. Shout it in your soul. Because this, my friends, is what real freedom looks like. This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is where the story no longer revolves around who left or who didn't stay. This is where the story becomes about you, about your rise, your peace, your transformation. You are not a victim. You are not a chapter that ended. You are the author who took the pen back and rewrote everything. You no longer need to be understood. You no longer need to be chased. You no longer wait at the door hoping they come back. That door is gone. And in its place, a new path. One that leads forward. One that doesn't look back. One that doesn't wait for applause or closure or validation. They'll remember you not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say. Not because of the way you left, but because of the way you never came back. They'll remember the silence, the strength, the stillness, the mystery, the grace. You became untouchable not by building walls, but by growing so tall they couldn't reach you anymore. And now you don't even look down. So as we close this chapter, say it one more time. I am untouchable. I am irreplaceable. I am moving forward. No more waiting. No more explaining. No more hoping. The version of me that begged, that pleaded, that chastity's gone. And what's left is power. Quiet, steady, unapologetic power. Write it in the comments. Say it out loud. Carry it in your chest like armor. And if this message spoke to your soul, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. And most importantly, explore our Stoic Wisdom playlist, because this is just the beginning of your transformation. Keep feeding your mind, keep protecting your peace, and keep walking forward, even when no one understands your silence. Because that silence, it's where your real strength lives. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and keep walking the Stoic path.